Do you still believe that NASA and SpaceX rockets weigh millions of pounds and travel 17,000 miles per hour?
Who the starts a conversation like that? I just sat down.
You do realize that the rocket isn't doing that sort of speed the second it leaves the ground, right? It's not like they flick a switch to ludicrous speed the moment they clear the launch pad.
Ludicrous speed! Go!
Oh, that's cute. Are you sure they aren't just giant helium-filled balloons?
Pretty sure, yeah. So are you claiming that all those years of rocket science, the complex engineering, the fiery explosions, all just an elaborate ruse involving party supplies on a monumental scale?
Shut up and sit down, you big bald f***.
Please subscribe.
In this video, I'm going to show you a few things, and what I would like you to do is just look at them with an unprogrammed mind.
An unprogrammed mind? Well, you've come to the right place. My mind is often unprogrammed, especially before my morning coffee, so lay it on me. Show me these things that are apparently so obvious that only a brain wiped clean of all that pesky science and logic can comprehend them. I'm ready to be enlightened. Or possibly just confused.
Look at them with a blank slate, and don't believe anything you've ever been told in the past, but just look with fresh eyes.
We can't just hit a reset button and suddenly forget everything we've ever learned. That's called amnesia, and it's generally considered a bad thing. Our brains are programmed with things like gravity makes things fall down, the sun is really big and far away, and the earth looks suspiciously like a sphere in all those photos and videos. Asking us to unlearn all of that before looking at your evidence is like asking a chef to forget how to taste before trying a new dish. It's kind of fundamental to the process.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
What I did in this first video that I want to show you is I removed the sound, because sound can deceive the eyes. If it sounds really fast, it can trick the mind into thinking it's moving fast. But with no sound, you can see slowly this rocket takes off.
So you think that by removing the sound, the visual evidence of a rocket slowly leaving the ground somehow negates the immense forces and physics involved in achieving orbital velocity? Acceleration isn't just about how fast something looks like it's moving at one particular moment, it's about the change in velocity over time. Even if it appears to start slowly, which by the way it really doesn't considering the massive burst of energy, the fact that it eventually reaches 17,000 miles per hour means there's tremendous amount of acceleration happening. Removing the sound does not change the laws of physics, mate. It just makes your video quieter.
And yeah, of course, if it weighed tons and tons of pounds or millions of pounds, it would start off slow. But I just want you to watch and notice that this isn't accelerating.
It starts slow, yeah, because it's fighting against gravity and its own immense weight. But, and this is crucial, it doesn't stay slow. It gains speed, and a lot of it. It goes from barely budging to faster than a speeding bullet in a matter of minutes. And that change in speed is acceleration, regardless of how slowly it starts. It's like saying a sprinter isn't accelerating because they've done it their top speed in the first millisecond. You're focusing on the starting line and completely ignoring the finish line, which in this instance is in space.
It's continuing to just move at a snail's pace, maybe at the pace of what a helium balloon would look like if all of a sudden it was let go.
Yeah, the snail's pace and the inevitable helium balloon comparison is back. Mate, with all due respect, which at this point is dwindling faster than a helium balloon with a puncture, are we watching the same video? A rocket launching, even if it appears to start relatively slow in those initial few seconds due to the immense forces it's overcoming, is a controlled explosion propelling a several-ton vehicle upward.
And in a minute, I want to have you compare it to the clouds in the background, and you can see how slowly it's moving compared to the clouds.
Firstly, clouds are not a static wallpaper in the sky. They are masses of water vapor moving at various speeds and altitudes, influenced by wind currents that can be significant. Secondly, a rocket is moving away from Earth, piercing through these atmospheric layers. Its trajectory is not parallel to the movement of clouds. It's largely perpendicular. Dick. So trying to gauge its speed relative to these shifting, different, distant objects is a fundamentally flawed visual comparison anyway.
Now here it is, and I'm going to watch as they switch views, because they always switch views, and I just want you to watch how it's not gaining any speed. It's just continuing to meander slowly like a balloon.
The changing camera angles aren't some sinister conspiracy to trick us into thinking this rocket is accelerating. They do that to show the different stages of the launch. We can see the initial liftoff, the shedding of the booster stages, and the perspective shifts as the rocket climbs higher. Each view provides a different piece to the puzzle, and that puzzle spells out acceleration in big fiery letters.
And then what I want to show you is its descent back to Earth. Okay, here's that rocket after it had reached a certain height, and now it's going to return back to Earth. And what it looks like to me is it's losing some sort of gas. I wonder what gas that could be.
And before you say it, no, it's not helium. Now let me get this straight. We've gone from questioning the launch of a rocket to now questioning the descent as well. And your conclusion is that it's a giant space balloon slowly deflating as it falls.
And then it's going to start falling to Earth. And again, does it look like something that's falling that weighs millions of pounds? Or does it simply look like a helium balloon that has had some air let out of it and now is meandering slowly?
So that would be a yes then. You do think it's a helium balloon with a puncture. And I've got to ask, what visual cues are there in that video to give you any indication of the rocket speed?
And here it is, continuing to fall slowly compared to the clouds in the background. And at a certain point, they're going to cut. And then amazingly, it's going to look like a totally different rocket. And because they switched to CGI. And now it's going to magically land perfectly upright as they do.
You do know that different camera angles are a thing, don't you? Now, they aim for precision, but landings aren't always picture perfect. There's a whole team of engineers and sophisticated technology involved in guiding a spacecraft back to Earth. It's a testament to human ingenuity, not some mystical levitation trick. The fact that they often achieve a relatively accurate landing is a result of rigorous calculations, advanced navigation systems, and well-designed landing gear and parachute system. Maybe he thinks that aeroplanes magically appear gently on runways without any pilot input.
Next, I want to show you some video of a NASA fuel tank that was jettisoned as it makes its way back down to Earth. And first, I want to show you that it weighs 66,000 pounds.
Ooh, 66,000 pounds. And that means a 66,000 pound object falling from space isn't going to plummet like a rock. It's going to interact with the atmosphere, creating drag, which significantly slows the descent. It's the same principle behind a feather falling slower than a bowling ball. The surface area of air resistance plays a huge role. And just like the spacecraft we discussed earlier, this fuel tank likely had systems to further control its descent. It's not a giant metal tube plummeting uncontrollably.
What a strange number.
Well, it's not really that strange, but I've got a question. What exactly is a fuel tank? I thought we were talking about fuel tanks.
Now let's look at that 66,000 pound tank falling at free fall speeds. Does that look like free fall speed to you? Or does that look like another balloon that has lost some pressure and is meandering slowly back down to Earth?
Here he goes again with his balloon obsession. I mean, everyone's got a kink, and if that's yours, good for you. But are you genuinely suggesting that a 66,000 pound falling object coming down from space behaves the same way as a deflating balloon? Free fall doesn't mean instantaneous plummet. It means falling under the influence of gravity without significant opposing forces. But even a 66,000 pound fuel tank experiences air resistance as it enters the atmosphere. Everything does. This drag slows its descent considerably, but it is not a sudden stop. It's far from the gentle drift of a helium balloon. What you're doing is comparing a falling anvil to a falling feather. Both are subject to gravity, but the descent rates are vastly different due to air resistance. And the video you're showing, the tank is descending at a controlled rate using aerodynamic principles, not meandering like a wayward party decoration. Do you think they just yeet these things out into orbit and hope for the best?
Now, I simply want to point out this supposed multi-million-pound aircraft having slight lift and then floating back down. Up and down. Up and down. Wow, I've never seen millions of pounds maneuver so easily.
Easily? Well, you go and do it then. But as usual, your observations are fascinatingly incorrect. And doesn't the fact that the rocket is moving up and down as the thrusters start kicking in kind of destroy your balloon theory? Helium balloons go up.
And why don't we take a look at this path it takes? Notice how it kind of flies off at an angle. I've seen balloons kind of take off at an angle. How does millions of pounds take off at an angle?
But rockets aren't at the mercy of the breeze like your beloved balloons, are they? They have incredibly powerful engines with thrust vectoring, meaning they can direct the thrust to control their trajectory right from liftoff, which allows them to launch at specific angles to reach their intended orbit. It's not just some random drift, it's a precisely calculated maneuver.
Oh, and by the way, do you know who the single greatest consumer of helium is in the entire world? That's right. A lot of people think it's for their satellites. I tend to think it's more for their rockets.
And that's true, but helium's primary role in rocketry isn't as a lifting gas, as your persistent balloon analogy suggests. It's a purge gas for hydrogen systems and a pressurizing agent for fuel tanks. So if your objective with your video was to prove that you're an idiot, well done. But if it was anything else, then I'm afraid you're just going to have to take the L and move on. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you again on Monday at 7:30 p.m. Love you. Bye. A contestant on the Australian version of Bake Off made a meringue and the crowd cheered, which is really strange because Australians usually boo meringues.
I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen.
That's all, folks.